Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, this morning. We are so excited to have you join us for the 5th Keeping It Real OC event. This series was created to bring education and awareness about Orange County's most vulnerable families and to discuss what it really takes to live and thrive in Orange County. Today's topic is focused on discussing the hidden needs in South Orange County. Many of us think of expensive restaurants and beautiful beaches when we think of this region, but we know that a lot of the families living in that area are struggling just like the families in the rest of the county. Today, we've brought together community leaders who are working hard to address the challenges in this region, as well as the rest of the county in order to discuss what their agencies are seeing on the front lines. Just so you know, this effort this webinar series is an effort, is part of our ongoing initiative for United for Financial Security. Sorry, it's early, so I'm still stumbling on words. At Orange County United Way, we have 3 key initiatives: United to End Homelessness, United for Student Success, and this effort, United for Financial Security. Part of our public awareness campaign in United for Financial Security is this series. So today is our 5th event. Before I turn the conversation over to our moderator, Michelle Davis, I have a few housekeeping reminders that I'd like to go over. We're going to be recording this session, so if you'd like to view at a later time, you are encouraged throughout we'll send this out and you'll have access to it through our YouTube channel. You are encouraged throughout the program and presentation to submit questions in our Q&A, and you'll see that at the bottom of the screen. And toward the end of the program, we'll share those questions with our panelists, and they'll have an opportunity to address and answer those questions. Without further ado, let me introduce our moderator for today, Michelle Davis. Michelle Davis serves as Managing Director for McDermott Bull Interim Leaders, an executive recruitment firm here in Orange County, and is part of our United for Financial Security Leadership Committee, and is also a resident of South County. Michelle, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm so happy to be here. Everyone, as Andrew said, my name is Michelle, and I'm with McDermott Bull. Just to give an abbreviated overview on our firm and how it ties into why I'm here today. We are a leadership consulting firm, and we provide executive recruiting and interim leadership. The companies that I partner with are community financial institutions, and they're mission driven. They're attached to a higher calling, much like many of you on the screen today. And I'm personally really passionate about financial education and empowering communities to understand what access they have to tools, to resources to achieve financial stability. Before access, though, there needs to be awareness of what the need is. And that leads us to our topic today on Keeping It Real OC, South County's hidden need. So before we begin, we want to introduce our panelists and have them share a little bit about themselves and the organization that they're representing. On our panel today, we have Eldon Baber, Executive Director with the Race Foundation, Paula Reza, Executive Director, Family Assistance Ministries, and Jennifer Friend, Executive Director with Project Hope Alliance. So we'll start with introductions, starting with Eldon, followed by Paula and Jennifer Friend. So take it away, Eldon, with introduction, sharing a little bit about who you are and the organization that you're representing.
Good morning. Thank you, Michelle. My name is Eldon Baber. I'm the Executive Director with the Race Foundation. Race Foundation is a long-standing nonprofit here in Orange County that has served as the Child Abuse Prevention Council for a little over 45 years. We, as an organization, are obviously focused on increasing awareness of the issues surrounding abuse, neglect, and maltreatment of children in the county. A lot of what we do is connected to support and awareness efforts. So in that regard, a lot of our practical support for families reaches into areas of immediate needs, food sustainability, providing access to resources for counseling, providing, if you will, a type of case management where our staff will sit with the family and help them understand what's happening, what resources they can get to, kind of develop a plan, if you will, or prescription for moving forward. The other part of what we do has to do in large measure, as I mentioned, with awareness. So I serve as the co-chair of Orange County's Child Death Review Team, where we look at all deaths of children in the county to determine if there's any type of abuse or neglect issue related to them, along with a number of other councils that we support.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eldon, so much. Paula, we'll turn it over to you.
I'm Paula Neal Reza. I'm the Director of Housing Strategies with Family Assistance Ministries. I'm here on behalf of Elizabeth Andrade, who is our CEO. She unfortunately had a conflict this morning. So I'm pleased to talk a little bit about our agency. Family Assistance Ministries is a faith-based charitable nonprofit organization. And our goal is to assist those in need in Orange County with resources for food, shelter, and personalized supportive counsel and aid. And our focus is really on helping our clients bridge the gap from dependency to self-sufficiency. Next slide, thank you. We invest in our community in 4 primary ways. The first one is through events. We have an annual backpack and school supply giveaway in August. Like many nonprofits, we do a golf tournament to raise funds for our services. We also have a Thanksgiving meal giveaway where folks can come to our agency and get all the different parts of pieces fixing, so to speak, for a Thanksgiving meal. And then we end the year with Adopt a Family, Christmas, and meat and food, where children and families are adopted by various donors. And we distribute the gifts as well as, again, food items for a holiday meal to all of families who are interested. We do have a large food pantry in San Clemente. Folks can come and pick up food Monday through Friday, 10 to 3. And to make it easier, we've added 3 satellite sites for food pickup, Dana Point, Laguna Niguel, and San Juan Capistrano. Every week, individuals can go there instead of coming to San Clemente. In addition to food, they can also receive case management services, which I think is kind of one-stop services, which we're very excited to provide. And then our 4th area is through our homeless services. We offer an array of homeless services, and all utilizing a holistic approach to working with individuals where they're at and helping them to identify their goals as to their next housing step. The next slide just shows you, I think many of you have probably seen this map. It shows the county. We serve, FAM serves the South Spa, which is basically Irvine South. And then on our last slide, to date in 22, so far this year in 2022, we've served almost 1,400 individuals through our satellite campuses. And again, we offer not only food, but also case management services. And then, as I said, we offer an array of housing options. We have 2 shelters, one for single women and one for families, single parents with children. And we also offer permanent supportive housing and an emergency housing for clients who are frequent patients at Mission Hospital. And that's a brief overview of FAM.
Thank you, Paula, so much for the introduction and the overview. It's fantastic. Jennifer, we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. It's I guess good to be with you via Zoom, and I look forward to seeing many of you live and in person as we kind of get back together as a community. My name is Jennifer Friend, and I have the privilege of serving as Project Hope Alliance's CEO. I actually will be starting my 10th year next year. Some of you may know I'm a recovering trial lawyer, but I also experienced homelessness as a kid in Orange County. And so it was my great joy and calling to come to work with this team here to end the cycle of homelessness one child at a time. We are very hyper-focused on serving students experiencing homelessness, kindergarten, all the way up to age 24 today, so that we can prevent them from being homeless as adults tomorrow. We last year, through all of our different emergency COVID outreach, as well as our on-campus case management, we served just under 3,000 students throughout all of Orange County. But our really deep work is actually placing highly trained trauma-informed care case managers onto public school campuses where they have their own offices full-time. And those are kindergarten through 12th grade campuses. And our case managers are referred students that teachers, administrators, school support staff, the cafeteria workers, janitorial team thinks might be experiencing homelessness. So they send them actually into our office. We have developed what's called a HOPE index, as well as additional assessment tools that allow for us to understand where that individual child is at and what their needs are across 11 different indices, everything from obviously basic needs, whether it be shelter, food, clothing, all the way up to things such as personal passions. Do they have something that they feel passionate about, whether it be music or dance or athletics? Because our eye is always on ensuring that our kids are graduating high school, because just that one fact of getting them across that high school graduation threshold makes them almost 400% less likely to be homeless as adults. So right now we're currently serving in this work, the on-campus work, in partnership with Newport Mesa Unified School District. So every campus in Newport Mesa. We just started with Huntington Beach Union High School District. So we're on 3 campuses in Huntington. And then we also are serving in Santa Ana. We have a very strong partnership with Santa Ana Unified School District. But we're also serving students experiencing homelessness that go to school in Irvine, San Clemente, and in the South Spa. So that work, I'm very pleased to say this year we had our largest graduating class of high school seniors. And by the end of the summer, because one kid has some credit recoveries to do, we will have 100% of our kids have graduated high school. And actually one of the things that was most profound to us was that we found that 11 of those students are the first in their families to graduate high school, not college, but graduate high school. So we then stay with them until they're 24. We have a bunch of kids going off everywhere from Cal State San Marcos to UC Merced to Cal State Fullerton. We want to make sure that we're able to eliminate the barriers and fill in the gaps that homelessness causes in their lives, because these kids show up despite all of the obstacles and barriers because they want a future that doesn't include homelessness. And so it's really our great joy to be able to walk alongside them in a non-prescriptive way. We have a student to case manager ratio of 1 to 30. So it's very deep, intentional work, but it's also generationally disrupting homelessness. So thank you to all of you out there who are a part of that.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much. So we can see and hear we're getting so much value already out of this discussion. And our goal really is to eradicate the misconceptions in South Orange County, really Orange County in general, but South Orange County is our topic today, by creating awareness of what the need is, what the resources are, what we're providing to communities, and then how you can help. So now moving into our discussion and format, we've structured our questions into 3 parts. So we'll ask each participant, each panelist the same question, really so we can hear varying perspectives and further understand the tangible need and how we can make an impact. And we'll end our discussion by having our panelists leave us with a call to action for those of us who would like to help. And there will be time at the end of our discussion to ask questions. So we encourage you all to engage and be thinking throughout the discussion of what questions you might have. We welcome all of your thoughts and insights. So we'll keep the order in which each panelist responds the same throughout our our discussion. And we'll start with Eldon, and the first question is, what unique challenges exist for residents of South County?
Michelle, I think it's an interesting question because when most people think of South County, they do not think of poverty, right? We have in Orange County in general, and of course nationwide, people have a perspective of the OC being this place of great wealth, great opportunity, which it is. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of wealth here. The challenge, I think, that most people don't see is that when you're in that bracket of, barely making it, so to speak, or surviving for a variety of reasons, it really, the opportunities tend to diminish. In Orange County in general and in South County, we are seeing some enormous increases in things that are adverse to children. So, for example, most people don't understand the second leading cause of death for children in Orange County, ages 10 to 19, suicide. Now, it's hard to imagine that a child age 10 would contemplate suicide. So, that points to some pretty adverse circumstances. We look at the financial implications of things like childcare in Orange County currently. For every 17 infants that are in need of a infant childcare situation, there's one space. And the average cost per year for infant childcare in Orange County is around $17,000. Now, I mean, from my perspective, and I think from organizationally, we would all agree, $17,000 a year is a lot of money to have someone take care of your infant. But if you're working, what do you do? And when you look at the South County region, it's even more complicated because most people are moving around, going to work. They're not at home necessarily. So we have childcare issues that people don't quite understand. We have this issue around suicide with youth. A third big one that most people really aren't seeing. I mean, we see it in the papers, but we don't understand that it exists in our South County community. Substance abuse, the opioid crisis. The predominant issue around child abuse has to do with parents neglecting children, right? We see on the news, we see in the papers, sexual abuse, physical abuse, all these terrible things. They do exist, but literally 40 to 50% each year, 40 to 50% of the child abuse that occurs is related to neglect. 60 to 70% of cases involve parents having substance use issues. So the substance abuse crisis is directly impacting children. And when you look at the rates of child abuse reporting in the county, there is not a single city, there is not a single community in South County that does not have it. So we think of in terms of that must be happening someplace else. And in reality, it's not. It's here in the South County.
Thank you, Eldon. It's tremendously powerful. Thank you for sharing. Paula, I'll turn it over to you to answer the question of what unique challenges exist that you see in South County.
Thanks, Michelle. Two related issues. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody here on this call that the high rent here in South Orange County. And this is just a ballpark, but the average cost to rent a one-bedroom apartment is about $2,100 a month. And it's so we have high rent. And even if folks do have that kind of money, there's an absolute shortage of available apartments. The occupancy or the vacancy rate is like 2.5% for Orange County, according to a report I heard for back in March. So hugely challenging for clients who are either able to work we've had the benefit of a lot of vouchers. A lot of our homeless, formerly homeless clients have been matched with vouchers, which is great, huge assist to them. But then finding an apartment they can afford that is in an area that makes sense for them, job-wise, family support-wise, kids school-wise, has been hugely challenging for our families. I would echo what Eldon said about the lack of affordable childcare options for children. Because again, a lot of our families are able and want to work, but if they have a couple of kids, $17,000 a year for one infant, and if they have a couple of kids, maybe an infant and a toddler and even a school-age child, that's a whole lot of money just for childcare, and in an area that, as I said earlier, has an expensive cost of housing. Then the final area that I would challenge is, and this sounds real kind of boring, but it's really critical, the lack of reliable and convenient public transportation. Again, a lot of our clients cannot afford cars, or if they have them, they break down and they can't afford to fix them. We can, a lot of agencies like FAM can provide bus passes, but the buses just aren't really convenient, and it's just a real challenge, and it can take a couple buses to go, especially if they're going from San Clemente area to Irvine or Central Orange County. So those are just some of the areas that we see as unique challenges for our residents here, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you for shedding light to those extremely critical, extremely prevalent challenges. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you on what unique challenges you see existing for residents in South County.
Yeah, I mean, clearly my colleagues have enumerated really the big ones. So I would just kind of add to their voice and say that one of the things when we talk about hidden challenges or hidden homelessness in Orange County is that we don't see the kids, right? So, and that is very true in South County, Central County, North County. That is consistently true throughout the country, which there's an estimated 1.3 million students experiencing homelessness that have been identified in California's or the nation's public school system. And those numbers are estimated to be underrepresented by almost 2/3. So in California, we have enough students experiencing homelessness that have been identified to fill up Dodger Stadium 5 times over, according to UCLA's report that was just published last year. And as Eldon was saying, the mental health crisis right now amongst even our youngest peanuts, I mean, he's giving you data that correlates to 10-year-olds. When we look at as a subset category, we look at kids and teens experiencing homelessness. The US Surgeon General's latest advisory report just said that from 2009 to 2019, the portion of high school students reporting persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness increased by 40%. And the share seriously considering attempting suicide increased by 36%. With a proportion of those students actually creating a suicidality plan. So that means that they have decided how to get a weapon. They've decided how. That has increased by 44%. Now, there's a lot of hidden things that exist within that both Paula and Eldon have alluded to, whether it is feelings of isolation that have been greatly exacerbated for those experiencing homelessness because of the pandemic, whether it is lack of resources. I mean, when you map out the available mental health and social services resources that are present in South County, I mean, I tip my hat to my partners who have physical buildings in South County because they are doing so much heavy lifting out of those buildings for an entire area. We just do not have sufficient resources. And the fact that that is grossly exacerbated by a horrible public transportation system in Orange County is something that doesn't even give folks an opportunity to get resources in other parts of the county. So we really right now have been building infrastructure in central Orange County in a way that is it's not covering all of it. We've been doing some mapping actually with Santa Ana Unified, overlaying. We started with food services, overlaying where all of the McKinney-Vento, so students experiencing homelessness, live, to find out where we actually have food deserts and we have an absence of food pantries and food banks. And as a result, Second Harvest has actually built out an additional 11 food pantries just in Santa Ana alone. We need to be doing that type of systems integration work and identification work in South County. And we need to start doing it today because a lot of people are moving south. They are not moving to Central Orange County or to Costa Mesa, this area, because of increased high cost in rent. So I think that when we overlay all of those hidden challenges, whether it's our students experiencing homelessness and families experiencing homelessness that are intentionally invisible because they're trying to work, go to school, and navigate a system that is completely disconnected from itself, or its transportation. I know Project Hope Alliance has a line item in our budget of $8,000 just for Lyft and Uber, because we give out so many gift cards and we're providing, and that's, you know, that's just for Lyft and Uber. So if any of you out there are connected to either one of those and wants to connect FAM or Project Hope or the Raise Foundation to those types of resources, that's a great call to action. But we really do have a tale of two counties here in Orange County.
Right. You're absolutely right, Jennifer. And thank you for bringing visibility to challenges, not just the families have, but really within the families, it's children and what they're specifically experiencing, and the data is remarkable. So we touched on the challenges that exist, and our second question is based on everyone's work and experiences. What barriers do we believe, or do you believe, exist in South County? So we touched on the challenges, and now what are the barriers? So we'll begin again with Eldon. Eldon, to share what barriers you believe exist in South County.
I know this may sound scripted, but it's not. I'm going to take off on a theme that Jennifer pointed to. When we talk about barriers, if you think about the county in a developmental perspective, how did the county build out? How was it developed, right? You look at historically major population centers. You know, we've got Santa Ana, we have Anaheim, you know, large cities, Fullerton. A lot of that, you know, early county development occurred in the north and central part of the county. The most recent demographics, most recent census information is now pointing to the city of Irvine as surpassing the city of Anaheim as the largest city in the county. So, you know, population base, as Jennifer said, is shifting south. Even considering, you know, what Paula had pointed to about, you know, high rents. I mean, let's face it, anywhere you go in Orange County, rent's pretty high. So if you're trying to pay for an apartment, it's hard wherever you go. One of the big barriers that I think has occurred is related to that developmental process. South County is at the tail end. South County was developed out as more of a bedroom community in a traditional sense, kind of a suburb. And as a result of that, you don't see the development of the nonprofit sector in the South County. There are far fewer organizations, as Jennifer pointed, you know, the heavy lift that is occurring, there are far fewer organizations to address the needs compared to other parts of the county. There is kind of this desert island effect, if you will. If you are a person in need, whether it's for housing or transportation assistance or counseling or whatever it might be that you find yourself in need of, if you live in South County, trying to find that is a lot harder because we just don't have the resources available for people. Those resources do exist, but as was pointed out, okay, I have to get to Anaheim or Santa Ana to get to an organization that has the types of support that I need in order to survive in my community in South County. as opposed to being able to go down the street. I mean, the point that was made about, Second Harvest creating additional food pantries, that alone, I mean, I think, FAM creating that satellite model, that's fantastic. The problem is it's not enough. And I know that, FAM, Project Hope, Race Foundation, individually, we don't have the capacity to actually do all that is necessary. So it's really, I think, a lack of service capacity that exists. And I understand it in a historical sense. So I think that's one of the big ones.
Absolutely. Eldon, you touched on a really, really important and valid point. And so thank you for that. Paula, we'll turn it over to you to share, based on your work and experience, what barriers do you believe exist in South County?
I would just add too, I think Eldon, described the situation really well. I would add two others. I think there's just a general, not just, that there's an overall lack of a knowledge about the needs of folks here in South Orange County. I've heard South Orange County described as a bubble. And I do think that there's for a lot of people who live down here, there's a total lack of understanding of the needs of folks outside of their own neighborhoods, communities, whatever. I would also add for homeless individuals, I think there's still a real fear and prejudice towards homeless individuals. I've had a lot of folks who I meet when I tell them what I do, that they kind of dismiss a lot of homeless. Well, they choose to live on the streets. And I don't agree with that. And unfortunately they, and that's a reason for them to kind of overlook those homeless individuals. So I think those are two big areas that two big barriers that we are trying to overcome at FAM.
Absolutely. The word bubble does resonate as someone who I grew up in Los Angeles, and Orange County and South Orange County specifically is at times referred to as a bubble. So thank you for your insights. Jennifer, your remarks on your work, and based on your work and experience, what barriers you believe exist in South County?
So one I would point out too is that historically, government and systems approaches to homelessness have always been downstream, as opposed to in the prevention space. As a result of that, we end up with a continuing cycle of homelessness that I believe is propelled in part by undereducation. I mean, when we look at the fact that 11 of our kids that just graduated high school were the first in their families to graduate high school, and again, that data point of a student who has a high school diploma is almost 400% less likely to be homeless as an adult, we can think about what are systems-wide strategies that we can deploy to serve students who are experiencing homelessness today and children in poverty today, to generationally disrupt poverty so that we don't have to continue to build more infrastructures to address homelessness, chronic adult homelessness down the road. So I think that one great obstacle is the lack of forward thinking and investment in preventative work, as much as we are investing, if not more, in the work that is helping to house our unhoused neighbors right now, which that work is God's work. Like, that is very critical work. So I'm in no way prioritizing one over the other. But I do think that we have to be forward thinking as a society when we're building out those infrastructures and those systems, as Eldon spoke to. And I really think that the lack of systems integration is one of our greatest obstacles to allowing for us to maximize our resource partners and the resources that exist. There's so much disparity and kind of siloing that goes on within not only our own industry in the nonprofit sector, but also in systems, healthcare, education, criminal justice, all of those things. I think that we have opportunities to build out, and I think South County is ripe for this right now, but to build out these minimum viable consortia, which are these kind of small, agile groups of people from different systems that we come together and identify where are our most vulnerable populations, where do we have service providers within every system, and where are we lacking? And I think that what we can do is we can start in these small, agile consortiums, and then we can figure out national strategies to scale systems integration in a way. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm always thinking like the kindergarten to age 24, because when you look at when people enter systems, kindergarten is really when they start formally entering different systems. And so how do we pull together all of those systems in a way that allows for us to not duplicate services, allows for us to be able to maximize the impact that our friends are having in their areas of specialization, but how do we identify those white spaces where we need to build future partners and where our kids are really falling through the cracks? Because I think when we start doing that and we start overlaying those types of things, that's where the real opportunity exists to start generationally disrupting poverty. But it takes work, because you have to invest in forward future thinking, right? And so I think as a community, when we're investing philanthropically, I think sometimes we have to shift our perspective from, okay, output numbers, right? You know, a lot of times people are taken by big numbers that you can put out in an annual report. And so investment is driven sometimes by what are those big numbers you can put out in an annual report. Instead, I think that we need to be thinking about where do our investments lie, that they're going to yield generational benefits. And we may not realize those. It may take us 5 years. It may take us 10 years with some of our littles, but all of the things that we will avoid in the pathway, like Edwards Life Sciences did a fiscal impact study on the work that Project Hope does getting a kid to graduate high school. They lent us 3 of their top research scientists, and they found that annually, each kid that graduates high school is adding $35,000 to Orange County's economy and saving $40,000 from social services. So that's a total add of $75,000 annually. So I think that we need to start thinking bigger. I think we need to start thinking in a more integrated fashion. And I think we need to start thinking years ahead, as opposed to what we're going to put out in our annual report.
Right. And that's such a wonderful transition into the last question, which is what needs to change from a mindset standpoint. And so what we'll do is let's combine that question with the call to action. So last question is, so what needs to change in South County to address barriers? And what can we all do for those of us who want to help? So Eldon, I'll turn it over to you.
Again, I'm Jennifer has kind of teed it up for me with her comments. There are 2 primary things in my mind that we all need to focus on. And the first and most important, I think, is understanding and recognizing that we cannot continue to live in bubbles. And what I mean by that is you have to know what's going on in your community and you have to speak up. All right. If you see, it's the old adage, it's kind of a tried and true. If you see something, say something. That's the bottom line. If you see a child in trouble, then act, call it out, do something about it. Don't expect that someone else will report that or deal with that. If you see someone who is experiencing homelessness or whatever the issue is, we have to stop living in a bubble. We have to get back to that point where we care about each other in our community and we take action because we're all part of the same community. So that's number 1. Number 2, and this is where Jennifer kind of teed it up for me, we have a problem from the standpoint of a lack of focus on prevention. That's just a bottom line. The vast majority of the work that goes on in the community is reactive work. It's post-event. We're dealing with treating things, with dealing with the symptom after the impact. So, you know, to Jennifer's point about the economic impact of these things, it's hard to quantify at times, but when you get some data and you start looking at things like the generational cycle of child abuse, an abuser becomes an abuser, becomes an abuser. I mean, it's like, there's data that is clearly pointing to the fact that it's better to prevent it than to treat it. So in all aspects, whether it's child abuse, suicide, you know, obviously suicide goes without saying, you know, preventing suicide is the only way to stop it. But when you're talking about things like homelessness or substance abuse or child abuse, all of these things, right? There are large, very large economic advantages to the community as a whole if we can head off these issues and invest in the prevention side. Now, the call to action here is we all need to start speaking up and speaking prevention. The funding mechanisms, whether it's from government, I mean, if you look at federal funding, state funding, county funding, city funding, the vast majority of that is driven into largely, probably I'd say, you know, 90% of it, 80% of it is driven into kind of the end of the problem, right? We need to be preventing the problem. So more of the government attention for funding and programming and support needs to be on the front end. And similarly, to Jennifer's point, we all as nonprofits, as organizations in the community, need to be driving that message. So prevention is the call to action. It's not, I mean, I get it. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that you shouldn't help someone after the fact. But if we continue to only focus on after the fact, we will never stop the problems.
Prevention is the call to action. That's absolutely right. Thank you, Eldon, for sharing. Paula, I'll turn it over to you to share what needs to change and your remarks on our call to action to the audience.
Thank you. I think for me, it comes down to some basics. I would encourage everyone to find out what's going on, truly going on in their community, and increase their level of awareness of all the issues, whether it's homelessness, child abuse, youth not graduating from high school, or going to school and then graduating. Find out what's really going on in the community. And a great way to do that is to get involved with one of us represented here as well, or some of the other fabulous nonprofit organizations here in South County. That's a great way to learn about what's going on and also to have more of a personal investment in what's happening. The other thing is, I would say, from our perspective, is be willing to accept the need for more affordable housing options to be available to folks, whether that's shelters, permanent supportive housing options, or affordable housing projects. I would strongly encourage folks to learn more about that, and then to be more open to that kind of solution to an issue of the lack of affordable housing in South Orange County. Those are the two areas I would focus on.
Thank you, Paula, so much. I know we're at time to transition to our questions, but Jennifer, closing remarks on how we can help.
I would just say quickly, I mean, I'm a pragmatic Pollyanna, so I like to leave with some optimism. The great news is Orange County has more than enough resources available to it to address the issues that are presented in a thoughtful, strategic, and dignity-based way. We just need to all get together and integrate our resources to be able to do it. And so everyone on this call has access to either a network, has access to volunteer hours, has access to the ability to go to a city council meeting and talk about issues and demand accountability in their communities. And so I really do believe that the call to action is to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. I love the ending on a positive note, right? These are real issues. And the important thing is to remember that we can effectuate change, we can make impact. So we do have questions from the audience, and we'll just flow right into that. And what I'll do is I'll just share the question, and whomever on the panel would like to start with a response, feel free to unmute your mic and address the question. So the first question is, what information source do the agencies turn to when individuals or individual needs services other than what they offer? So what information source do the agencies turn to when the individual needs services other than what they offer? How do they refer the individual to an outside agency?
Michelle, I think I can take a start at that. The Race Foundation is part of a large platform called FACT, Families and Communities Together. This is a network of family resource centers. And that's, I think, a good example of those resources that are available that Jennifer pointed to. We have these large networks. We do have other organizations. So it's if someone shows up in one location and expresses a need that cannot be served at that particular point, there are networks of information out there available to all of us. To, Paula, Jennifer, and I can all literally pick the phone up and call another organization through some of these networks. The Family Resource Center platform across the county is one of those, as an example.
I would also add, I know that FAM is also involved and was one of the founding members, along with Project Hope, of the Family Solutions Collaborative. And so we really have found that in this space of families experiencing homelessness and transitional age youth, that there really was not a focus on how do we collaborate together to serve this specific subpopulation. So we are grateful to have it's a lot of sisters in good and brothers in good that we come together at the table. And if there's a case that comes to us that maybe doesn't fall within the parameters of our organization, we cross-refer to one another. And we really work to understand and to educate one another as well what additional resources are out there. So some of these great subpopulation groups that are forming, like the Family Solutions Collaborative, are being successful.
Fantastic. The second question we have is, first, the audience member says, thank you to all the speakers. How can Orange County-based companies do more to help address these core issues? So childcare needs, housing shortages, public transportation, education barriers. How can OC companies do more?
So Orange County companies all have vendors, which means that there are people that are soliciting the business of the Orange County businesses. You can leverage those networks and those relationships to be able to secure in-kind donations of things like Uber and Lyft gift cards. Maybe it is Target gift cards. Maybe there are so many relationships that corporations have that they can actually aggregate together for the good of the community. So that's one thing. Second thing, your intellectual capital. You have experts on your team that can do everything from data analysis to project implementation and planning. And those are things that maybe a nonprofit can't afford to hire someone at $225,000 a year to be able to analyze their data, but they may have a specific project like the Edwards Life Sciences team where we can turn over data and you guys can put something together that allows for us to all share as a community the impact and the need. So intellectual capital and leveraging your own vendor bases and resources for in-kind donations.
Absolutely. Paula?
I would also, I totally agree with what Jennifer just shared. I would also encourage businesses, corporations to do some research. What needs really resonate with your corporate structure, with your employees? and begin to do some research. And then a great way to find out more specifics is to have some of your employees volunteer at organizations. I know at FAM, our warehouse, packaging food, getting food out the door to hungry families is a big need for people. We have a small staff, and so we rely very heavily on volunteers. And we've had several groups from certain companies come and work for 2 or 3 hours in the warehouse, and we have opportunities Monday through Saturday for that. So that's just one way to learn more about a specific topic, a specific need. But I would encourage companies to pick some needs that they think they might be interested in and learn more about what's going on, and make an opportunity for their employees to volunteer.
Exactly. Thank you, Paula, so much for sharing. And we do have a last question. Who can we look to for leading the integration of services? Who is going to bring the resources and services together to help administer those resources equitably?
I think we just have to do it. So who can we look to? I mean, we have a lot of amazing leaders in this county that truly care about the mission more than their own organization, who truly care about whether it's the kids being at the center of the circle, or it's chronically homeless adults who are living unsheltered. We have to come together, and I think that those investing in the nonprofit sector need to almost require that the nonprofits are doing that in a way that is authentic and a way that is effective. And the thing that's great is sometimes it just starts with a conversation where you pick up the phone, and like Dr. Yamas at Santa Ana Unified, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services, got on the phone with her, and then got Nicole Sudam involved and Claudia Keller. And we ended up starting this mapping thing that no one was paying for, no one was directing, but we knew that if we mapped out where our most vulnerable kids are, and then we overlaid on top of it, just starting with food, we would find out where the needs are. And then we push out the information and people rise to the challenge to fill the need. And so I really think that we have to do it all together as a community, and it has to be something that is an expectation of investment.
You know, Michelle, I would add to that. I do think that there is a, if you will, an advocate's voice that is required. We have elected officials, county officials, state, city officials, and they need to hear from all of us that there's an expectation. To Jennifer's point, you know, we do need that type of messaging from the top down and from the bottom up. So when a county supervisor or a mayor, you know, steps up to the podium, so to speak, they should be voicing that. They should be, if you will, driving that message throughout their respective systems, so that you hear from the people above you, hey, this is part of how we operate as a city. We collaborate, we work together. So breaking down those silos that I think was mentioned earlier in our conversation, it's going to be an important part of this, because as much as Jennifer and Paul and I could get together and try to create a collaborative, if the system itself, if you will, is not cooperating, it's a lot harder.
Right. Thank you, Eldon, so much for your remarks. And thank you to all of our panelists today, Eldon, Paula, Jennifer, for your participation, your tremendous contribution to the discussion around South County and really Orange County's hidden need. And thank you to everyone on the webinar that took the time to spend the last hour with us. It truly shows that you care, that you want to make a difference. And together, I do believe that we will continue to do that. And so it's my honor to turn it over for our closing remarks to our President and CEO of Orange County United Way, Sue Parks.
Oh, well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you for assembling and for moderating such a wonderful panel. So thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this. And to Eldon, Jennifer, and Paula, thank you for sharing your morning with us and sharing your wisdom. I think it was a great conversation and hopefully enlightened a lot of people here in Orange County about the needs. And again, many of you mentioned that it starts with educating, and this is what this series is about, keeping it real OC, to remind people of the need and ways that they can get involved. So again, appreciate the candid response. And this is part of a relatively new initiative, United for Financial Security, which Andrew leads. Michelle's part of the Leadership Council. And we all are trying to do is bring together people to talk about these issues and then what are the solutions together. And one thing I'll just say that what we learned from our one small, but hopefully a good model is we learned in South County that one of the elementary schools there, RH Dana, that in beautiful Dana Point, 80% of the children are on free or reduced lunch and 50% of the children are homeless or housing insecure. And so our women's group decided we're going to put a financial literacy program in place. And this is a part of the prevention area. How do we stabilize the family? So if the family's stable, the child can stay and be successful in school. And we partner with FAM and other organizations down there when the families have services that they need. Second Harvest is doing the food banks. And again, I think a collaborative effort that maybe can be modeled as we grow. So again, little spots here and there, but we need to think bigger. We need to do whatever we can to solve these issues together. So again, thank you all for your wisdom, for caring so much about the community, for being part of this morning. We will in another 3 months have our next Keeping It Real OC conversation and looking forward to progress being made together. So everyone have a terrific day and thank you for caring so much about Orange County.